That's the meeting.
There you
And
go.
while she's doing that, I see where we appear to be live now. We have deputations on a number of matters this morning. Some deputants are deputing on multiple matters. Just to flag for you, Mr. Chair, did you want us to invite the deputants to make their comments on both matters that they're deputing to at the same time, or do you want us to bring them in and out?
I think it's better. I would prefer, I mean, I'll listen to the committee members. I would prefer to have them speak to the issue as we deal with the issue, as is done at City Hall with committees.
Okay, we'll take that approach. Thanks.
I mean, and however, the deputant may not want to hang around for the duration of the whole meeting. So, they may wish to speak to everything at the same time.
We'll flag it. We'll flag it at the time that the deputants come on, who have multiple deputations, so we can deal with it at that time.
Okay. All right, so I'll call the meeting to order, and for those who are viewing via live stream, just to mention that in the private session we discussed the transition of some of the contract managed buildings into the management of Toronto Community Housing, and Councillor Nunziata gave a very favorable report of how that's proceeded in her neighborhoods, which is always good to hear, and that the board is certainly on the right track. And we thank Councillors Nunziata and Fletcher for bringing that forward and making that happen. I mean, it's a really positive initiative, and that's what councillors are supposed to do, right? So that came through Toronto City Council and gave the board direction to move in that way, and the outcome is proving to be beneficial to the tenants, which is we thank them for that. So I'll ask for actually, before I get started, I will just let me begin with an acknowledgement that the land on which we hold this meeting is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat. And we acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. And so we'll begin our public session with an approval of the public agenda. Could I have a motion to approve the agenda? Moved by Ms. Debbie Douglas. Would you like to move that? Debbie's moved that. All right, thank you. All in favor? All right, so the agenda is approved, and then we will ask for any declarations of possible conflict of interest. Seeing none, I'll ask for a motion to confirm the public meeting minutes of July the 5th, the last time we met, July the 5th, 2021. Motion to approve the minutes. If there are no questions, moved by Councillor Nunziata. All in favor? All right, thank you. And we then move on to the Tenants First update.
And we have a deputant in relation to that matter.
Okay.
I believe Mr. Lohman is on the line.
I am. Thank you.
Mr. Lohman, good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. If I may, good morning, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Sharma, Ms. Penny, and committee members. Thank you for the opportunity to address this committee. My name is Bill Lohman. I'm a senior living in one of the 83 buildings that will be the part of the Toronto Seniors Housing Corporation. I am a member of the Senior Tenants Advisory Committee for the Integrated Service Model, and I am a long-standing member of Seniors Voice. First, I'm not sure, I don't see Mr. Sharma here. Oh, yes, I do. First, I would like to welcome Mr. Sharma, our new CEO, and to wish him all good success on his leadership during this time of transition at Toronto Housing. And I'm deputing on the Tenants First update. And what is stated and promised in these reports do not relay what's occurring for seniors. The assertions that imply everything is fine and going as planned raises some questions about whose plan benefiting whom, and because for many senior tenants, it is not clear. Tenants First, the SHU, and in the opening of STAC, all stated and claimed that in their reports that tenants will have direct involvement in implementing a system that best meets the needs of seniors, and that Toronto Housing is working with tenants to develop a new tenant engagement model. The new model will give tenants a say on issues that affect their community and allow tenants to have input on local decision making. As part of the phase one, and this is in one of the attachments, in late 2020 of the integrated service model rollout, in various roles, including the senior services coordinators, tenant service administrators are being onboarded. The design and focus of the integrated service model is on addressing the living in place needs of the communities, not the needs of active seniors. And I would ask, why are there no senior tenant representation on any of the working groups that are leading up to the, in the development of the seniors housing entity? In attachment 4, in July 2017, there was a report from Tenants First to the council to create a permanent funding formula, including the operating and capital for the new tenant community housing corporation. And seniors were told in July of 2019 that there was no money in the budget for seniors engagement. And now in 2021, 2 years later, efforts by seniors to putting in requests for funding and support for senior engagement initiatives are still being disavowed and denied. Question is why? In quarter 4, in the 2020 update on Tenants First, states the STAC is a forum for seniors housing tenants. STAC members have yet to receive any information about what is working and what is not working in the Southeast Phase 1 implementation. The purpose of the STAC was created to give seniors a voice on the implementation of the integrated service model. It was supposed to be an advisory committee, not a forum. Items, and beyond that, I had some comments about the data collection and on item 7 in the tenant survey, that basically it is a vital tool for collecting data. And it's going to be mailed out to the family portfolios, and they're using gift cards as incentives. This is just for family buildings. Why aren't the SHU seniors included in this survey? Because it would help ensure that seniors get an opportunity to participate as well. And at this point, we are still part of Toronto Housing. Thank you. And I would suggest you look at page 16 of the shareholders' direction on tenant engagement, where it says that tenants will have the opportunity to be involved in decision-making at all levels.
Thank you, Mr. Lohman. Mr. Lohman, I thought your time has expired. Yes. Thank you very much. Thank you for all of those thoughts. I saw staff nodding and taking notes. We do have a question, if you could stay on the line.
Certainly, thank you.
Councillor Fletcher.
Hi, Mr. Lohman. Are you on the STAC, by the way? You were here last time. Are you on STAC or not on STAC?
I am a member of STAC, Councillor Fletcher.
Thank you. Okay. So are you finding that in this long transition, it's really hard to know who's in charge and what to do?
Yes, ma'am. And we find that that oftentimes we will get responses like, we have no control over this because this department or this entity is the one to decide. And so with that, it does make it difficult for us to figure out who is in charge. But I would say that there, as a member of STAC, and as an assertive member, that we are starting to make progress, you know, in terms of defining, you know, what's being put in front of us in terms of some of the policies. You know, like like yesterday we were talking about the use of space policy, and these are very important things. The
Yes,
question
thank
is,
you. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Thank
you came to talk about the 145 Strathmore. Did you come to make a deputation about the rec room conversion, taking it away?
I did.
Yes.
I did
And I moved the
back in
motion.
May.
Yeah. So that's now been paused, as you know. Are you aware?
No, ma'am. And
Okay.
as a STAC member, I guess that would be one of those things that that I would expect to have been informed about.
No, there's STAC, the city, I'll ask staff about that. I think the city has its own seniors table, but you're not feeling that tenants are as involved as they should be in transitioning to the new corporation. Is that, if I put that like that, would you agree?
I would agree, yes.
Okay.
We
Thank
are
you.
not involved. We're not involved in anything other than what the STAC management is putting before us, and we have a letter stating that that's all we are going to discuss.
Right. And how do you still meet with management or not?
Yes, we had a STAC meeting yesterday. We had one in June, and then we had one yesterday. The next one will be in November.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thanks.
Thank you. Any further questions of the deputant? Okay, seeing none. Thank you, Mr. Lohman, for your deputation today.
Thank you very much.
Right. Okay, so moving on to the report. Are there any questions of staff on the report? Seeing none.
Yes, no, I have questions.
Okay.
For staff on the report.
Councillor Fletcher.
Well, the first one, and I guess this is, we're in the middle of a transition. I guess I'll ask Mr. Sharma this, ask Jay. We're in this long transition from now until June. And I'm just wondering how we're thinking about making sure that in this betwixt and between moment that the seniors are fully engaged. So having heard from Mr. Lohman about the rec room and taken that up with tenants first, and then it's come back to a whole number of things. We have the seniors board, we have TCHC board that's still in charge. Is there not some way to have a better integration between yourself and the interim CEO for the seniors that would make sure that everybody understands the process, the timing, what they should expect, and get the best advice possible on some of the most difficult issues there. So I'm a little concerned that seniors don't have a firm ground under their feet. So even on the survey that Mr. Lohman mentioned, it's not including the seniors, doing a tenant satisfaction, but now the seniors are out, yet TCHC is still the landlord, manager for all the seniors units. So those are the kind of contradictions that are being noticed. And I'm trying to find a way to ask, or I'm asking for something that's smoother and deeper. So why are the seniors not included, I guess? That's the first question. Why were they not included in the seniors, in the survey, so we could find out how they're thinking about things and the new corporation would have that information? I'm unclear why that wouldn't be done. Do you know?
Yeah. Through you, Councillor Fletcher, or thank you, Councillor Fletcher, for the question, and through you, Chair Campbell. A few things. I think the plan was, and I can regroup with Paula to understand, is to survey the seniors group in 2022 once it had been established. And so I think there was a line of sight in order to do a specific survey with the seniors group as it began to be stood up. With respect to your earlier question or comments around better alignment and greater communication to the seniors, I share your thoughts. In fact, we've set regular meetings between the transitional lead, Mr. Schreier, and myself and the team on a weekly basis. So Mr. Schreier and I will be meeting bi-weekly, and he will be involved in meetings with TCHC on a weekly basis to ensure that we are working together on this transition. And from a communications perspective, that is something that I believe we discussed yesterday or late last week as well, where things are moving quickly. And now that Mr. Schreier's got some more staff on board, we're working very aggressively to ensure that the communication plan is going to be respectful of ensuring that seniors are made aware of the plans for the transition as well.
So just on that, there's the STAC, that's a TCHC body. There is, I believe, a Tenants First at the city has a seniors advisory committee. And I'm just wondering how they're going to be involved, because they've had this long trajectory, and I think they've got a lot to offer.
And my apologies, Councillor Fletcher. I'm not sure that I can completely answer the question. I'm not sure whether Paula is online or not and could assist. But thank you, Paula.
Good morning, Councillor Fletcher. We are actually in the process of mapping out all those stakeholder groups and what those touch points are from a communications perspective, both at the city with seniors as STAC group. Actually, Jill and I connected yesterday on that, so that we have a plan in terms of when we engage with them and how often and what the information will be that we share with them. We met yesterday with the city and with seniors housing unit to sort of talk about that as well, so that we're really unified in our approach. So our plan is to have that mapping exercise as well as the overall plan for communication finalized by the end of the month, so we can start to engage on a regular basis between the end of the month and then June.
So I just want to go back to the Tenants First Seniors Advisory Committee at the city. There
Yes.
is one, and there is a STAC.
Yes.
There may be many other stakeholders, but these are our key stakeholders. They've been set up as part of this process, but I'm not sure they're still part of the process. That's my concern, Paula.
No, I completely understand that, Councillor Fletcher, and thank you for raising that. My comment was intended to state that absolutely, completely agree in terms of the importance of those both groups. It's how do we integrate the approach with them, as well as the timeliness of when we engage going forward. So part of my exercise yesterday was to understand, for example, how frequently do we meet with staff? How frequently does the tenant services group meet, so that we can engage in those forums and also understand whether we need separate engagement over and above their existing formats that they have, and then what is the plan to communicate, and what will we communicate through those different venues, different vehicles, for example.
And then they could be brought together as two groups.
Absolutely.
Together. They should be unified now, because it's one process.
Completely agree. And that was part, because what we want to make sure is we're not creating engagement fatigue, but we're leveraging kind of the right forums and where are there opportunities to bring those groups together. So you're absolutely correct. And that's part of that mapping exercise that I spoke to, so that we're just aligned to what's already in place, but then also understand what do we need to do separately or differently to make sure everybody's engaged appropriately.
And feeling very comfortable about a major transition, correct? Yes.
Absolutely.
I just want to ask one more thing about the survey, because I think having a baseline now as to what people are thinking is not a bad thing. And then that information goes to the new Seniors Corporation. For them to start in a brand new situation, I think we're missing an opportunity. So I'm going to ask what the opportunity would be to include the seniors in the tenant survey in 2021.
So that's also a question I would like to respond to. But I'm actually going to ask Jill Bader to comment, because I know there is a separate survey that is being contemplated. So I'd ask my colleague.
The tenant
Jill.
survey is later on the agenda, though, is it not?
Yes.
Right.
Okay,
So
we'll come back to that. Thanks, John.
let's come back.
Yep,
Okay.
I'm happy. So on the scattered properties, I just want to know about the, well, are there, unclear, the transfers taking place, but there are what's the status of the homes? I guess I'm just trying to pinpoint here that for the seniors that think there's a new corporation, they're still with the old corporation. For the scattered tenants that think they're in a new situation, they're still in the old situation. And I'm unsure what the management structure is. And I want to make sure that before these are all delivered, that people are still getting the service that they need. And I'm not going to go into the example, but I just got one yesterday that was very disturbing for me, which appeared to indicate that when something's leaving, you don't spend as much attention on it. And that's what John said about exactly what you said about the directly managed and the contract managed buildings. When you know it's the end of the road, you don't put as much time and effort in.
So let's give staff a chance to reply. Sheila, can you comment on the status of the occupants of the scattered properties?
So I completely agree with Councillor Fletcher that as things are transitioning out, there are sometimes things that fall between the cracks, and I know that we have a very detailed plan for the transition of these scattered houses, what's going over when. It is our responsibility to continue to provide service to those houses until the date of transition. And if there is a specific issue, Councillor, that's come to your attention and you forward that to us, we'll make sure it gets addressed. And I'll highlight this for the 3 regional teams in our operations meeting this week. Lindsay, I don't know if you want to add.
Or can you just tell me if the scattereds are still being, Sheila, before Lindsay, would you just advise everyone, is there a new management structure for that?
Lindsay?
Are the single family homes managed by the seniors unit still, or are they managed by the regional units?
Yes, the seniors, the scattered houses are managed within the regions under the general managers.
And how were the tenants advised of that?
That was communicated through their, I believe Sheila. Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Yes, we can hear you. Somebody else is chiming in here.
I think Sheila may be having audio problems.
Okay.
Yeah, my apologies. I'll just head down the hall and let her know.
I don't want to speak for Sheila. I'm sorry. Yes. Sorry. You're tricky.
Careful. You're smart, Lindsay. Yeah.
But yes, it was communicated out to tenants.
How were tenants advised, and how many multiple ways to acknowledge that they're not calling that same person that they called forever, who was in the seniors side?
Mm-hmm. That was Sheila. Are you there? Oh no.
I think she's connecting.
Yeah.
She's talking, but we can't hear her.
I know.
Sorry, the question is how we communicated to people residing in the scattered houses?
Yes, because I have a 91-year-old woman who's phoned the seniors person 3 times with a big issue and about the house next door. So I'm a little concerned that people don't know that they have to phone somebody else.
Right. Okay.
So is this something, Councillor Fletcher, that staff could get back to you on in more detail following the meeting?
Well, yes, but this is all about communication. I think you're hearing that, Chair. It's about communicating to the seniors that things are changing. Who do they go to? What structure is it there for them? Communicating to the residents that are living in these homes, what to do between the time we've made the decision and the actual execution when it changes.
Okay.
It's a bit of a limbo space, and
So
I'm
who
not convinced that we have
question?
done that we're doing that as well as we're doing all of the technical parts of this.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Are you there, Sheila?
I am now. Sorry
I think
about
so.
that.
That's great. We're just talking about the communication to tenants with respect to scattered houses. So in terms of that transition from the seniors portfolio over to the regions, And I believe, Sheila, was that communicated out by the regional teams to those
It was.
staff? Yes.
Yeah.
To the tenants?
Yes. But what I'm hearing from you, Councillor Fletcher, is that we need to take that away and perhaps circle back and ensure that that communication has been clear to tenants, or do a second round of communication to ensure that they understand who they need to call.
Yes, I think so. And then I'll give you the example, Sheila, and you can figure out why nobody's ever called her back.
I will.
It's very disturbing. Thank you. Thanks. I think communication's number one during this transition because it's a long road and vacuums create problems. We can't have that. We need to have we've got a lot of lateral communication, and now we need a lot of vertical communication.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Any other committee members have any questions on the tenants first update? No? Okay. A motion to receive. All in favor? Thank you. Yeah, the next item, and we're on the consent agenda. Maybe these items should not be on the consent agenda, I'm thinking, Dara. All right, so we have the Community Safety Advisory Committee Charter. Are there any questions or comments?
And we have a Deputant Katie Meyerson who asked to speak to the committee in relation to that item.
We do. Yes, we do. Okay, thank you. Do we have 3 deputants on this?
We have Ms. Meyerson is deputing on this matter. She's also asked to depute on item 8. And
yes,
so I don't know, this may be one of the matters that the committee may want to inquire of Ms. Meyerson if she wants to depute on both matters at the same time, or if she wants to come back for item 8 separately.
Ms. Meyerson, are you there?
I am.
Do you wish to depute on both items at the same time, or would you like to hold your comments for the harm reduction until we get to that on the agenda?
I'd like to hold my comments, please.
That's fine. All right. So if you could just proceed on the Community Safety Advisory Subcommittee with your comments, and you've got 5 minutes. Thank you.
Certainly. Thank you. I also, I spent a long time with the agenda trying to figure out where this best fit. So I apologize if I didn't quite nail it, but I know that this is relevant, so I feel good about it. So my name is Katie Meyerson, and I am a health promoter with a focus on mental health, substance use, and community safety at Unison Health and Community Services. We are a full-service health center with 6 locations serving the northwest part of Toronto. For more than 5 years, I have been providing case management and advocacy to clients who are victims of community violence. Many of these clients have been TCHC residents and have prioritized receiving support through the Crisis Priority Transfer as a part of our work together. Unison also provides trauma counseling to victims of community violence through a partnership with the City of Toronto, which is a program that I coordinate. So I'm coming to you today to raise an issue that we have now seen with multiple households in the last several months. I'm aware that this committee will be receiving biannual reports on crisis priority transfers, but this issue cannot wait. In the TCHC operational performance measures shared with you at your July meeting, you heard that in May, there were 773 rentable vacant units in the family portfolio, that a total of 1,219 units had been or were being demolished, that 207 new units were built and were pending move-ins, and that 184 units were being held to offer to tenants who were relocating. It was specified that due to elevator restrictions, it could take up to 6 months for all units who have relocated to return. This means that new units are sitting empty for a considerable amount of time, and more are being held for possible future relocation. Meanwhile, households who have been approved for crisis priority transfers are being kept in limbo for months, languishing in the homes and neighborhoods where they are not safe, because there are not sufficient units being made available for crisis priority transfers. For a family that has recently experienced a shooting, a stabbing, or serious threats, learning that they are approved for a crisis priority transfer is a relief. Then being told to hurry up and wait, and that they cannot move into vacant units that would meet their needs because they're being held for relocations is confusing and profoundly upsetting. As a mental health worker, I can confidently say that victims of community violence need to have stability and improve feelings of safety before they can heal from their trauma. Your own policies recognize this as well. Your crisis priority transfer process states that, that to be approved for a transfer, it must be verified by police that, quote, the current unit is causing or contributing to a direct, immediate, elevated, and acute risk to an authorized household member's safety or health that can only be alleviated by moving them to a different unit. While I recognize that managing large-scale relocations is complex, I am asking that you please act immediately to prioritize the health and safety of victims and witnesses of community violence by making units in your newer builds available to them to increase the speed of transfers and to expedite their restabilization and healing. Thank you.
Thank you for your deputation and for your comments. Any questions from committee members? I guess that this is in view of the charter for the Community Safety Advisory Subcommittee. It's something for them to be considering, the safe transfers and so on.
Thank you, John. Just want to underscore and to acknowledge that UBA has been raising this as well with great concern about not only the time, but in terms of often families then being transferred into the neighborhoods that is also traumatizing. So I wanted to thank the deputant for flagging for us that there's a possible solution here. Dag and Sheila, I'm not sure how that can work in terms of how do we begin to integrate our crisis transfers with our relocation transfers with because it doesn't make any sense to keep units empty while we have families whose lives are in danger. So not wanting to complicate your working lives, but certainly a conversation need to be had around some of these issues.
Thank you, and that'll be a topic of conversation and interest, I'm sure, once the committee convenes.
Just to say, John, I agree with the deputant and Debbie. We have been talking about this, and it's a real concern and issue about the crisis transfer. People, being transferred from one problem area to another, the time period and what have you. So that's definitely something that we need to talk about. Thank you.
So I can appreciate the importance of this topic, but in the interest of moving the agenda along, this is on our agenda. This is the subcommittee charter, and I don't know if anyone has any comments or questions further to that item on the agenda. And if
I'd just like to say thank you. I'm not sure we should, I think we can look at this under, there's a report. Sheila's got her report here that tells us the number of unrented units.
Right.
And I think we should ask those questions then.
At that point in time.
Right then, because we're talking about why can't we use them. I
Right.
think we need to deal with this separately from going into the bigger committee.
All right, so if I could get a motion to approve the report that's before us, the recommendation. Moved by Debbie Douglas, thank you. All in favor? Okay, so we move on now. Then we come to the information on business arising. And the first item, I just want to know if anyone has any, there's quite a number of items there, or there's some items that people would like to hold or ask questions on. I have a question in regard to number 1, if I may. It's in regard to the provision of internet access to all TCHC households that's coming to the November meeting. Can you tell me, Sheila, perhaps you're best to tell me what work is actually being done in preparation for that information being brought to us?
So we're working very closely with the city on their strategy to broaden internet access across the city and aligning our efforts with theirs. So we'll be reporting back to Tenant Services in November on the results of that work.
And I noticed that in the survey that follows later in the agenda, there's some pretty specific questions in regard to internet access, and that will help inform the report?
Correct.
Right, okay. In regard to the agenda item on business arising, do any committee members have any other questions on the updates that are provided?
Yes, John, on number 11, it's crisis priority transfers. So our deputant spoke to the community safety, but really she could have addressed number 11, which is we're hearing biannually on the number of crisis priority transfers administered and feedback received from tenants, etc. I think that is coming in Q1 2022. But I'll leave that up to Uba if she wants to raise anything about that here, because she's been so involved in making this happen.
So this is just stating that the report is coming in the first quarter. Uba, did you have any comments, or did you have any questions in regard to that report that'll be coming?
No, we met and talked about this issue. So it's coming November, I believe, the November meeting.
No. This is Q1, first quarter of 2022.
Exactly.
That's correct. Is it, Sheila?
That's correct.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So motion to receive this information on all the items that will be coming forward. Moved by Councillor Nunziata. All in favor? All right. Next item on the agenda is item 4. Sorry.
And there's no report in relation to item 4. It's just an opportunity for the chair of the Community Safety Advisory Subcommittee to provide an update, a verbal update on the work of the subcommittee.
Thank you. Thanks, John.
Okay.
We did have our meeting. We're going to have another one soon. Thank you to all the members who have joined, the staff. And today we've had our charter passed. We've had this discussion about the 2 pieces of information on Neptune 4 and on the sequencing of the buildings to be able to look into that. So I think that we're just starting, and I just want to say looking forward to this work. If anybody has anything more to add that's from the committee, please do. We're going to make sure we talk to tenants in this one. Councillor Nunziata has got groups that are organized, see how effective, what people need, more people need on the ground if they're doing that kind of work. But tracking and really getting a handle on the issues in pernicious locations is what we're going to be doing, and how people can feel safer in all parts of their life.
Great. All right. Thank you for that report. In my interest in moving the committee agenda along, I forgot that I had a couple of questions from business advisors. So the one request would be, JAG, there is an operations organizational chart, and it would be great if we could receive that in the future with names. I think that would be helpful, particularly for councillors that have responsibilities in particular areas. I mean, it's obvious this is not an urgent need, but it would be great. This is the organizational chart on who does what where, and it would be great if we could just see that with names. And then Sheila, thank you for the information on the wait list, and I'll ask you maybe just a little more information sort of offline through an email for further information.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. So
John, did you go back to number 3? Did you go back to item 3 on that?
Well,
the org chart that was appended to the.
Yes, that's what I was. So I've been remiss in not in when we were on that and not asking for names to be put into all those boxes.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
And yes, thank you.
Right.
And the rate list too. Good.
Right. Okay, and thank you. So the next item is the revitalization, long-term economic and employment benefits, and Sheila, we'll turn that over to your team to talk about some of the great work that's been done in the last few years to provide employment opportunities for tenants.
And Mr. Chair, I believe Kelly, our acting Chief Development Officer, is going to speak to that report.
Good morning, Kelly.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, and good morning, committee members. At the May 4th meeting, TSC requested that management provide the long-term economic benefits and stable employment opportunities generated across TCHC revitalization sites. And then at the June 15th board meeting, where the development division goals were brought forward, a motion was directed at management to report back on the objective of securing opportunities for tenants. The report before the committee today responds to both of these requests. In section 1 of the report, we provide an overview of tenant economic and employment opportunities generated through revitalization work. And section 2 of the report includes the number of jobs, the length of employment, construction versus non-construction jobs, as well as training and scholarships. With me today is William Mendez, who is the Director of Program Delivery. We would be happy to take any questions that the committee may have on this report.
Councillor Fletcher.
I think I asked for this report, and I'll say it's a good start, but when we're looking at this, I'm just looking at the value of all the construction, the number of person hours for the construction. What is the value of all the construction to date? What are the number of person hours worked for Regent, for Lawrence Heights, for Alex Park, for Leslie Nyamak? And then of that, how many person hours have we captured for the construction side? Because we have only number of construction jobs more than 2 years, 34. We have people working for 0 to 3 months. How many hours were those? That's on page 6. The non-construction jobs, summer jobs are the most of that. I don't know where Lawrence Heights and Alex Park and everywhere else is. It only has, I'm just going to go back 5.8, 2.1 employment. Where's Lawrence Heights? Where's Alex Park? Where are the other places? Because only Regent is discussed, unless it's missing. The types of jobs that we're looking at, where everything is basically summer jobs. The project hours on construction jobs for what I'm going to say tenants, and then the project hours in general for construction. I think when we see that, we'll know if we're meeting the mark, and what our model is for development. So this is great to have a start here. I think it's just the start, because this is massive amounts of money in building these places. And I'm not sure we're capturing the value yet. So I'd really like to have this go a little deeper, Kelly, in this, as far as kind of hard facts are concerned. And then make some recommendations after that. So that's the first thing, just about baseline construction hours, project hours, rather than people, whether full-time, part-time. And then,
Would you like to make that as a motion to come back and report out?
Yeah, I'm going to send this back. That's correct. To have the amplified, to amplify this report. And then also by community, because these revites, so if we go by revite region, here's the revite, here's the money, here's everything, here's the jobs, here's Alex Park, we only have a certain number of revites that are underway. On the page 4 of 8, 1.2 contracts for social enterprises. I'm interested in this one. It says, in addition to securing direct employment opportunities, TCHC has awarded contracts to social enterprises which employ tenants. Over $400,000 has been awarded to social enterprises to carry out work in the Revite sites. Here's the examples: catering, painting, construction, hoarding, unit cleaning, moving, support, landscaping. I'd like to know what the social enterprises are, how many tenants there are, and how they're procured. because I'm not sure that we're looking at procurement at the moment. How have they been procured and how is that? Doesn't seem like a lot of money, but I think I don't know if it's all sites or if it's just Regent or what. So let's be a little clearer on that one, because it's another area of interest for this board at another committee. So that's really, we could just take this report, send it back and ask to amplify those things, John. I'd be very happy. Thank you.
All right, and just for your information, I asked, when we were reviewing the agenda, we reviewed this particular item, and one of the things that I'd learned was that over $4 million in salaries have been dispensed in wages to tenants, which is not shown in the report. I think is interesting, and I think what you're probably getting at is that it's hard for us really to benchmark whether, I mean, this looks great. It's hard for us really to benchmark that it is great or should it be better, or, you know, are we exceeding expectations with this? So more information.
I don't see that number in here, 4 million.
No, and William, would you like to?
And what were they hired for? What were they hired for?
William, would you like to just elaborate on that?
Of course, Mr. Chair. So we have been able to estimate the total number of wages where we have information on the contract length and wages paid to tenants that have secured jobs in the through the revitalizations, and that total number is estimated to be $8.5 million in wages earned by tenants. And that takes into consideration construction and non-construction jobs that have been secured by tenants. And so that's what we've been able to collect. Councillor Fletcher, to your point of the description of Regent Park being provided. So in Regent Park, the community economic development, in particular employment opportunities secured by tenants, was reported through Toronto Employment Social Services. So that is a separate report for phases 1, 2, and 3. The figure in the employment table in 2.1 looks, there's a number over there that is 455 tenants, or 455 job opportunities that have been secured by tenants. That is taking into consideration all of our revitalization sites, excluding Regent Park. And in phases 4 and 5, we will be recording directly and tracking and monitoring the progress on employment for Regent Park residents. So we will be able to report on that in future reports.
Well, let's clarify that in this report then. Could use a little bit of a touch-up, I think. And as well, I think 8.5 million, I want to know the total value of all of the construction for all of the revites. I think when we see that, it's going to be interesting, because that's really, have we maximized our potential given the construction dollars? And I just want to know those numbers in here. That would be helpful.
Okay, so we have are there any other, we have a motion to refer this back to staff or further?
Yeah, I'm moving that, because usually it's 10% of jobs. I don't think we're meeting 10% of the construction jobs, etc. So let's just get back at it, get this in a format where we can start tracking. We may have to go at it a few times, but at this point, this doesn't meet the requirements of my motion that I moved to.
Yeah. And John, if we can have it by revitalization area as well, as opposed to a balloon figure, that would be great.
Yeah, break it down. Thank you.
Through the chair, if I may.
Yes, ma'am.
Councillor Fletcher, I just want to bring to your attention, we will certainly fulfill your request and calculate the number of person hours. In 2.1, we provide a number of employment per month, by months, not hours, but we're happy to change that into hours. I also wanted to turn the committee's attention to the report for the Lawrence Heights Revitalization May 4th. In the attachment number 1, we do break down the tenant benefits accrued by each of the revitalization sites. So it does report on the number of jobs, the value of the jobs, the number of tenants employed, and the number of months of full-time jobs. So
Yeah,
we're happy to
part-time,
produce it.
yeah.
We're happy to augment that by hours if the committee wishes.
Okay. Paula, do they need it by hours, or is months of employment good enough?
Well, it's part-time, full-time. Let's come back. I'm happy to talk about that, but right at the moment, it's not a clear report as far as here's each of the revites, here's the value, here's what we've done, here's the number of jobs. And when you look at the final full-time jobs, anyway, these are big money, and I think we have an opportunity. I want to make sure that we're really maximizing these opportunities and have done so. Thank you.
So if I may suggest, Jag, through you to your staff, that in the preparation of the report, you might just cover off some of the parameters that she'd like to see prior to that being published. And for us, just go back to Paula and say, this is what the report's going to have. Does that look good to you, sort of thing? Is that something, Paula?
That'd be helpful. And then we'll get a standard that we'll set in order to track. I think that's helpful.
I think that's
Thank
good.
you.
All right.
Thank you, Chair Campbell. Will do.
Okay, so that's the motion by Councillor Fletcher to refer this back to staff for further more detailed information. All in favor? All right, so that's fine. And then we move on to the Chief Operating Officer's performance measures and reports. And we can take them one at a time, I suppose, in the interest of trying to do some serious work here. Does anyone have any questions on the first item on the operational performance measures? All right, that's where we have the vacancy rate, rentable vacant units, non-rentable vacant units, calls to the client center. Any questions there? Okay. Next item is commercial rent arrears resulting from COVID. This is where commercial tenants have have been unable to fulfill their obligations, and it's a considerable amount of money owed. And if I may ask, does anyone have any questions? I have a question. If anyone asks the committee, so I'll go ahead. So Sheila, is some of this? Do we know what portion of this will be recoverable, if any?
So we know that we have 180 commercial rental units. We know that 64 of those commercial tenants elected to defer rent. We know that of those 64, 32 have come back to be current with their rent. And we have 32 tenants who remain in deferral, and we are working with them to be able to answer that question.
So would we be and maybe this would be more of a discussion for a private discussion. So I'll defer my question.
Okay.
Okay. All right. And on the tenant complaints update, are there any questions or comments about that particular item? I have a question, Sheila. One of the things that the Ombudsman referred to was that, it's clear from the Ombudsman report that some people don't know, are still unclear about the process by which they register complaints. And so we're trying to advise people through social media, web banner, building posters, etc. But what about a postal drop where you actually put a card in somebody's hand? It goes into their mailbox. We've just been in the process of distributing the Tenant Survey, and that's being mailed. This would have been a great opportunity to also, in the same envelope, as it were, distribute a flyer or a card on how people, on the process by which people can issue a complaint. Have we considered a postal drop, or is that considered too expensive? Or
so we have mailed out information to tenants on how they can raise a complaint, but as the report indicates, raising awareness around how to file a complaint, it's an ongoing process, and that is something that we could take under consideration. Every time we do a mail out to tenants, there's a standard, piece that goes in advising them. John, we'll take that away and add that to our library of how we're going to improve communication with tenants.
You could do fridge magnets. I remember there was a former mayor of Toronto who used to do fridge magnets that to a certain degree of effectiveness, right? Yeah. You recall that, Paula?
Yes, but most fridges you can't put magnets on now, so that's a little bit of a problem, isn't it?
Debbie, you have a question?
Yes, Sheila, I'm sure I ask you this every time, but are we sending out information in various languages around the complaints process?
We do, and we also advise tenants how to receive more detailed information in the language of their choosing. So that's
standard
process. Yeah.
Very good.
Can I just ask a question too, please?
Sure. Yeah.
Just looking at page 110 here, page 3 or 5 in this report, that on the building, on these issues of building service problems, Sheila, do you identify places that might have chronic problems or chronic buildings where you're getting a certain number of complaints?
So that is an exercise that we're just getting into, councillors, so that when we track complaints, we look for buildings that have, ongoing complaints, so we can get a team out there to look at it. That's a very good point.
I'm just going to ask, sorry, to JAG, is that something that the homes would be spitting out reports? There's maybe a building in Councillor Nunziata's ward that has a large number of complaints, and we'd be identifying that there's issues there in that way. Can you address whether or not that's in the IT plan or what?
And through you, Chair Campbell, and to the councillor, certainly I can't say specifically, but what I can say that is that I'm very much aligned in looking at the statistics and understanding, I guess, where there are opportunities, where there are repeated trends, whether it be from a building perspective, and being able to slice and dice the data in different manners. So we have had conversations with the team around that, but what I can't necessarily say to you with confidence is that there's a specific report that will be generated. What I can say is that we will be working to that end.
And is there any way that we go back and kind of, I guess, customer satisfaction approach, where you go back and you touch certain people that had a complaint and say, how did that work out? You get some feedback like that. Do we currently do that, Sheila or JAG, in any way?
Yeah. I was just going to say that I believe Ms. Penny could share some information on our service quality measures and the work that we're doing there as well.
Yeah, so we are going out building by building and doing service quality indicator with tenants as tenant leadership gets established across the portfolio. Each building that is aligned with the hub will go through a service quality survey. So it's a very granular building level, tenant level. These are issues in their community. We do the same exercise with staff, and where there are issues, there's a team that goes out to assess and put a plan in place to rectify. And as you know, with COVID, we haven't been able to get tenant leadership in place as quickly as we would like, but we have pulled a sample by region of that exercise that we plan on bringing to the next Tenant Service Committee meeting to show you how that process actually works. We're pulling 2 examples per region, and we'll be sharing that with this committee.
Thank you. I think my question was a little more granular. It's kind of, you know, you get a follow-up call. How was your experience? You're not calling everybody, but you're just randomly picking data, calling people.
Yeah.
Did that get sorted? How was it? I don't think we do that. It's different than doing a building survey. You're actually going back to people that had a complaint done by a third party, making sure that everything that you think's happening is actually happening. I don't know if you've given any thought to that.
So you'll see in the report that there are steps that we're taking to do that with in-suite work, but I appreciate that I believe what you're asking, where we've had 107 complaints in July of 2021, down from 201 in 2020, have we gone back to those 107 individuals?
No, I'm not asking to go back to 107. I'm asking to do a random, whoever would do that, and maybe go back to 20. So just how was that? Just, it's a different approach.
Yeah.
And because we don't close that loop, that's all.
Yeah. So we could, I see John Ankow, our Director of Business Ops, nodding his head. We'll build that in to our next TSC report.
And it would have to be somebody other than the landlord calling them, I think, too. Okay.
All right. Councillor Nunziata.
So in the report on page 5 of 5, delivering after-hours maintenance services, and it indicates that we had a pilot program in the West End, and that was very successful, and you were able to achieve a 77% first contact resolution rate within 4 hours. Do we have a list of the where the program was conducted and which buildings were conducted, the pilot?
So the pilot was across the West.
Okay.
But we could provide you with a follow-up report on what buildings were engaged. This is all about ensuring that when we have a call after hours, that we have a team going out who can actually address and fix the problem, rather than containing it until the superintendent arrives the next day. But we could provide information around the stats or the sites that back up those stats.
Yeah, so so it's my understanding that that pilot was very successful, and you're looking at providing those services to other areas. So I guess that report would be coming forward. Like, I mean, so obviously this was a very successful pilot, correct?
Yeah.
And
yes, correct.
At one point, will we be discussing if we're going to expand it?
So we are managing to make this shift in how we deliver after-hours service within the budget envelope that we currently have. So it's our intent. We ran the pilot in the West. We got great results. It's our intention to implement the pilot in East and Central within our current budget envelope. So we wouldn't be coming back to committee for approval, but we will be following up with committee on results of the full implementation once it's realized.
Okay, thank you.
If I may follow up on that, Jill, what are examples of after-hours maintenance? Are they would be crisis situations, wouldn't they?
Correct. So you have, a leak in your unit,
right.
And do now, what we're looking to do, using the West pilot as an example, we dispatch a team after hours who goes out to the site who has a vehicle with parts so that they can go to the unit and actually fix the problem
Okay.
rather than turn the water off and leave it for the
And this is only
superintendent.
for a crisis when somebody calls in and they need immediate. This is not to fix a jammed window or a door handle that's broken inside
Correct.
the unit. Right. Okay. Okay. Motion to and then the last item on this number 6 is the tenant engagement refresh update.
We do have a deputant in relation to this matter. I believe Mr. Avila Velarde is on the line to depute to this matter. Mr. Avila Velarde also has requested an opportunity to depute on item 8 on the agenda, so the committee may want to inquire whether he wants to speak to both matters at the same time or rejoin us for item 8.
Okay. Miguel, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Good morning, Miguel. Do you want to speak on this item alone, or do you also want to address the harm reduction at this time, or would you prefer to wait till we get to that?
I would prefer to speak to the second item and speak separately.
That sounds fine. Okay, so go ahead on the tenant engagement refresh. Thank you. It's 5 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll be speaking on the item 6D, September 14, tenant engagement refresh update. With regards, phase 3 is the context of my deputation. I want to thank the team of the tenant engagement refresh for listening up to my concerns with regards to tenant elections in Region Park. I just want to disclose that I'm a member of the the Region Park Neighborhood Association. I'm also a member of the Coalition for Community Benefits for phases 4 and 5. And I'm the current tenant representative for 220 Oak Street. On the meeting that you hold in July 7, there were some unclear date as to when this process will happen. So for phases 3, there was like about 103 communities that were going to be involved. But on today's agenda, on page 303, it says that as a result, the implementation of phases 2B elections was amended to include the following: combine phases 2B communities with vacancies with phases 3. Adjust phase 3 timeline to start 2 weeks early and recalibrate engagement strategies to increase interest and participation. And the following page, 304, it says that they're enhancing the number of units up to 212 communities, for engagement. So this is great news for us. As I mentioned, as a member of the Region Park Neighborhood Association, that we have a set date when this will happen. It will be on November the 19th, as spoken by the Tenant Engagement Refresh to me on a meeting that we hosted last week here at 220 Oak Street. And we are happy to announce that we are using the hub service office on limited capacity, but it's good that still we can meet face-to-face to talk topics that are really important to the building and the community as well. So thank you to the team of Liqua, Julio, and our brand new community services coordinator, Ms. Marca. We are working together to achieve so many things in this building. Thank you, Jack, for replying to my email and for trusting your staff that they're going to do an excellent job, by the way. So yesterday, the good news is that we host our first Webex meeting at 220 Oak Street to evaluate the service quality indicators review as a pilot, by the way, that will be distributed to other communities. You know, that makes me proud to live at this building because a lot of things are being tested on in this building, and the results are being shown. We are undergoing a renovation of this building. $30 million will be invested in capital projects. This is thanks to the cooperation of many members of this board, Sheila Penny, one of them, and the team of the Disability Committee. So great things are happening. And so what I can say is that the adjustments made to the tenant engagement refresh are excellent, and we look forward to host elections between the condominiums, boards of directors, to request them to start the election process so we can enhance the membership as the workload is going to be higher in 2022. How is my time, by the way?
30 seconds to go.
30 seconds to go. I'm going to wrap up. So, good job, guys. The tenant engagement refresh. I guess, thank you for listening to me. That is very important. You know, my voice matters. The voice of residents matters. And that's important that we can work together. And here at 220 Oak Street, we are excited for the things to happen. We're going to have, you know, a lot of things coming up. We have a constructor that is a construction company that will be developing the renovations, which are great news. Thank you.
Okay, Miguel, perfect timing. Thank you very much for your deputation today and for the positive comments. Any questions from committee members on the information provided in the report? Okay, seeing none. Motion.
Oh, wait, which report?
This is the report on the tenant refresh engagement that Miguel was
Yes, I just need to have something clear. Yeah, thank you, John. Yes, I do.
Sure.
I have the chart on page 3 of 4, right? Which shows communities without tenant leadership, number of vacants. Oh, without tenant leadership, number of vacant positions. So that's the total number of unfilled positions then, is that right?
173.
Pardon me?
Yeah.
173 unfilled positions.
Well, not on my chart here. Page
Sorry,
3.
Page 3.
Communities with vacancies and number of vacant positions.
387 vacant positions.
And
Page 3 of 4, John.
And so when it says communities without tenant leaderships in place and then number of vacant positions, what's the difference between those two numbers?
So each community has a different number of tenant leaders based on population. So number of communities, number of vacant positions within those communities, and then the attachments detail by building where those vacancies are.
Got it. Thank you.
By building.
Thank you. So if I was to say 212 out of how many communities?
212 out of where, if you look at the chart on page 2 of 4.
Page 2 of 4, wait, I'm going there, yes.
Right, you see leaders in place.
Leaders in place, total communities.
9, and then above that you see total communities. So of the, you have to do the math, 170, 103, 57.
$330.
Right.
That's my math. Anybody have a different number?
No, that's what I got too.
So the number of communities without leadership is 212 over out of 330 communities. Have I got that right?
Yeah.
And then when I look at number of vacant positions, what would the total, is there somewhere where we have the total number of positions here? And then when we go by what we don't have again in that, and I'm sorry to be so, but by zone.
Sorry?
Total number of communities is, we've got very detailed information on the east, west, and seniors, right? That's great to have that all broken down. I want to thank you very much, Sheila, for doing it in that way, because I think it's very helpful to see, again, how many communities are we looking at, buildings, and what's the number, and how are we doing in each of the three. We got the numbers, but we're unsure how, is somebody way ahead or not? And for the seniors, I'm just noting now that we have it broken out. There's 14 seniors positions filled out of a total number of 78. So again, I'm just going to go back to this with JAG, that this is part of that transition for the seniors portfolio that needs extra special attention. And I know we have, I know COVID is there. This has been a long time without, we got rid of those tenant reps without something in place. So it's a difficult situation. But I thank you very much for the reporting.
Anything outstanding that you wanted to receive, Paula?
Well, I'd like to, I'm flagging that about the seniors because,
Okay.
you know, they're leaving, so there won't be that much in there. And I just guess that, anyway, it's a long, extremely slow process.
And it has not been helped by the pandemic at all.
Not been helped by the pandemic, and there's probably a few other things, but we'll just leave that. So we have a lot of communities with no representation.
And I think, you know, quite frankly, there's probably a reluctance on the part of people to want to commit to something, you know, given that, you know, the state of affairs with the, you know, with the pandemic, you know, people are
I know.
On edge.
I will say, and I'm going to say it again, and I don't know, I am not moving a motion yet, but there are hundreds and hundreds of tenant reps that were in place that were very dedicated for many, many years. They were fired, I call it fired, with nothing in place. They've never been thanked. They're feeling, well, anyway, they're still taking all the questions that they used to have. But this also relates to all of the participatory budgeting and everything else. Nothing can happen without any of that. So it's very much in flux. It's not everybody, no one person's fault because of the pandemic, but I do think that our longtime tenant reps were poorly treated. That's all I'll say in this circumstances. And they should be thanked for their service.
And so if I may follow up, Sheila, do we have an understanding of maybe you could just help me. So these tenant reps are no longer in their positions because of the new system. They're not prohibited in any way from re-engaging TCHC to be tenant reps?
They're not prohibited, and there were letters, and I'm looking to Julio to confirm this, but I sent letters to those tenant reps and received correspondence back from several of them acknowledging, thanking us for reaching out to them, to thank them for their service. But it's a small thing that we did. We sent a letter. We could have done more. I appreciate the feedback.
Okay. All right.
I'm only saying they feel a little abused, and some of the best tenant reps, they say, I'm not running for that position. I'm not running. And they were so great in those buildings. So they're feeling a bit bruised by this, and I'm just flagging that one more time, that you know, active, dedicated people that were pushed overboard and only got a letter recently from you, Sheila. So it's not a great situation. And I'm saying that in.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Take
Made
that
my
away and
point
see if
again.
there's something additional that we could do.
I think the ship is
Would it be
sailed.
nice if a corporate sponsor came forward and offered something?
I think it's got to do with how we treated the tenants. I'm flagging that. It was not done very well. My Danforth location, most wonderful tenant rep ever. So I'm not,
Okay.
no, I feel like I've been pushed overboard. So many of these places, I'm just letting you know.
All right, so we need a motion to receive the COO reports.
So I've prepared a motion that addresses all reports in one at the same time.
Right.
Yeah, John, I think Marcel had his hand up.
I'm sorry, I didn't see that. Sorry, Marcel, did you have a question?
No, I was just going to agree with what Councillor Fletcher was saying with some of the tenant reps. I think a lot of times now they don't want to be bothered with it anymore because of just like how they were treated. Not all of them, but a few that I have talked to. Yeah, that's all.
Yeah, they feel discouraged. I agree with you, Marcel and Councillor.
Ubi, you've heard the same thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Not across the board, but definitely some people feel that way. So I agree with.
Got it. Okay.
Paula
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Marcel. Thank you, Uba. Thank you, Debbie, for pointing that out, that Marcel had his hand up. All right, so we have a motion to receive the COO reports. All in moved by Uba, or moved by Councillor Nunziata, seconded by Uba. All in favor? Okay, thank you. And then the next item is the tenant survey. And I'm sure we'll have some questions and comments here. Anyone have any questions on the tenant survey? I mean, I would just like to say that I think the staff made some good moves to shorten it up. It's very readable. And Debbie, you had a question.
I'm not sure if I missed it, but was there, Paula, was there a question on sexual orientation?
Within the
I know there's the first question is on gender, but I don't recall, and I'm
just checking on that. Hold on.
I took a look at it again early this morning and I couldn't.
There is, it's question 16.
16, yes.
Oh, good. How are we, I know you have a number of outreach plans. I'm wondering though, because I still think that not everyone is savvy with internet, not everyone has access to internet. I know that people can call forum, but how, it seemed a bit daunting to ask someone to pick up the phone and phone an external third party to do a survey. Wondering, and the researchers, Paula, you and your team will tell me if this is doable. I'm wondering if we can offer an opportunity where some of our community support workers sit with tenants and help them fill in the survey so that we're maximizing participation. My sense is that I don't think all of our tenants respond to fill out this paper survey or pick up the phone and call or do it online. That we have found in my own workspace, and this is often with frontline practitioners, that they much more participate if there's an offer for somebody else to ask them questions and help them fill it in, especially for folks with language issues.
Yes. So through the chair, yes, thank you so much for that question. Absolutely, we're very much engaging our staff within the buildings and our support staff in terms of knowing how to guide our tenants and that our tenants can actually make outreach to them for that support. We also have a campaign within our buildings with our actual staff becoming sort of communicating that the tenant voice matters, so that they'll know to be able to outreach directly just through that campaign as well. So that absolutely agree with you. Our goal here is to ensure that we drive maximum participation. So any of those things that we can do to support tenants to make sure they feel comfortable. And that's why we've given 3 different vehicles in which to complete the survey, but then also to have that direct interaction with our staff. We also have a fulsome Q&A and support for our staff, enables it so we can help them support tenants as well. So it's a very comprehensive campaign that we have sort of behind the actual survey itself.
Very good. And have you done, does that include a real awareness about why you're asking the demographic questions and what it will be used for, so people are not hesitant, especially people from our queer communities who have to live in those communities, right? And need to trust that the data won't go anywhere else but where it says go. Great. Thank you, Paula.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was feedback we actually received from the past tenant, was that kind of concern as to how the data was being used. So we've been very mindful of that in terms of both the design as well as the way in which we communicate the information to our tenants and staff.
Yeah, I wanted to echo John. I think it's an excellent survey instrument. Good job.
Councilor Fletcher.
Yeah, I just want to say about having staff help you fill it out, because you're saying, if you say you're dissatisfied, you're going to feel that maybe you're not going to get good service. So
yeah, I understand that.
We have to take that into account, number one, for those really honest answers that people feel that nobody's looking over their shoulder. For me, that's number one. Then the issue is, do you get results by building, not by person, but by building? Because that will give us another set of information that's pretty important. Paula, is that coming back in that form?
Yeah, actually, so take your point, Councillor Fletcher, as it relates to the sensitivity of the way in which staff support tenants. So thank you for that. As it relates to the data and how it will be received, we are going to be receiving it at a hub level. And the reason for that is that it's difficult to go to a building level just because we have individual buildings, and we want to be mindful of the anonymous nature of the data that comes back.
Yeah.
And we also felt it was important, as I'm sure you can appreciate, that it aligned fully to the new hub environment, given that that's new to us as well. Yeah.
But we'll also have that by zone or by region.
Yes, by region.
So it will be by hub and then be by the 3 regions.
Absolutely.
And I'm just going to go back at again, back to the senior survey, because I think some of this information is pretty baseline. Are you satisfied? What about your building? Is it clean enough? Getting responded to in a timely manner. Notice was proper. The annual rent review, that was easy to understand. I really think that some of these are really incredibly important, that the leadership of the new Seniors Housing Corporation would have. So I'm going to ask again that that be taken under consideration for baseline turnover. Is that going to be possible? I doubt it by the 15th of October, but.
So thank you again, Councillor Fletcher, and I will ask my colleague Jill Bader to jump in on this as well. Part of the rationale was that we recognize that the seniors portfolio is unique and independent in terms of the experience that seniors may have. We also know that the ISM is moving into phase 2, so they will have had a broader experience with the ISM. So the plan is to move to do an independent survey with the seniors at the beginning of next year that would build will leverage the baseline new design of the survey, but then also in addition add on specific ISM and senior specific questions, so that data is really relevant to that specific community, with a view to having that handed to the new corporation.
And when would that go out, and when will we see the survey?
Yeah, so Jill, maybe I could hand to you in terms of, I know we're working on that design right now, if you might want to comment on that.
Yes, thanks, Paula. Yes, so Councillor, we did make a conscious decision, as Paula mentioned, when the survey was being drafted, to wait on the seniors housing tenants for 2022, because we'd be further along with our integrated service model implementation and also be better positioned with the move to the corporation. And so we're planning for that to happen sometime in Q2 of 2022. But we did, just to share as well, and have just been finalizing results, there was a survey done of the tenants in the Southeast region of the integrated service model, the first 18 buildings, and those results are just being finalized, and we have intention of bringing them back to this committee to share so that they can serve as a baseline in advance of that survey plan for next year. It was a fairly extensive survey that was done, as I say, across the 18 buildings. We had just shy of 40% response rate from tenants, which was quite positive, and had some good results to share here. and we're intending to bring that likely to potentially the next Tenant Services Committee, but just want to review those with JAG and other members of ELT before we bring it forward to the committee.
Well, I assume you'd be, and this is where I get the governance issues here again, as to how the leadership of the Seniors Housing Corporation gets integrated into this type of thing. So I'm looking at you, Jag, because we have two separate streams at the moment that I'm finding, and it's not, this is a birthing process, and we have to have a really good birth. So on this survey piece, there's the stack, there's the tenants first, there's what we want to get from the survey, when we want to have that. And I think Jill's right. The survey really isn't all about the, it's taking it forward to the new corporation. So there's a baseline, but all I've heard so far has been around the hubs and the issues there. So, and tenants have come to speak to us, and seniors have come to speak to us. So I think, Jag, you've heard what I've said, that there's two solitudes here, and that has to end very quickly in the most formal and informal way, so that we know that that birthing process is happening. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm always in favor of a good birth. Paula, thank you for that. Jill, when will the results be known to us?
As I mentioned through you, Mr. Chair, we are going through finalizing the results now, and we had plans to review them with JAG and with Michael Sherrar, the Seniors Corporation Transition Lead, and then potentially bring them to the next Tenant Services Committee as part of our ongoing work with tenants in the ISM model.
Right, so the survey closes October the 15th. You'll have all the results tabulated by when? Or
oh no, to be clear, the survey has been completed. It was completed late last year, early this year. The results and the analysis have been ongoing. So we are just finalizing the outputs of the survey and the summary, which is very comprehensive and detailed. So we would look to bring it here to the next, that was part of our plan, was to bring it to Tenant Services next month.
The senior survey, John, not
no,
the main
sorry.
survey.
Paul, I'm referring, I should have referred this to Paula. Paula,
Yes.
This survey is completed October 15th.
Yes, so we'll have the findings complete by the end of December, is when we'll receive the report back from the vendor that we're using.
I guess it's time consuming because so much is done by paper.
Right, and we're asking people to mail them back in, which is, we know the majority of likely what will happen, but with these two other mediums, specifically online, we're hoping that we'll have that data earlier. But yes, with all of that effort, we'll, the end of December is the most realistic.
It's too bad there's not a drop box in some of the buildings where they could just drop it off.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, that would be great. You go down your elevator, you just drop it in the, the survey box, right?
Yeah, we talked about that actually. It's a good idea. That the challenge we had was kind of managing that, and again making sure that that was kept anonymous for tenants.
Right.
And we actually include a stamped return envelope so it's for people to be able to return. But I will take that.
Otherwise, we could get ballot stuff, like happens in Belarus and places like that, right? We wouldn't want that. Okay.
No.
All right. So all in favor of receipt of the report, moved by Councillor Fletcher. Thank you. All in favor. All right. And then the last item, we have a number of deputations. It's on the harm reduction procedures. And we have Katie Meyerson. Dara, correct?
That's correct. I believe Meyerson is back on the line.
Katie, are you there?
I'm back.
Good. Okay.
I'm back.
So this is on harm reduction procedures, and you've got 5 minutes, please.
Okay, thank you so much. So good morning again. My name is still Katie Meyerson, and I support the harm reduction team at Unison Health and Community Services. I also coordinate the North End Harm Reduction Network and sat at the TCHC table that supported the development of the harm reduction policy. I want to thank Lindsay, Scott, Suzanne, and the other staff who have been advancing this work, as well as the board for believing in this work and moving it forward. I am happy to report, I'm going to give you a little bit of a field update, I am happy to report that I have seen an increase in TCHC-initiated harm reduction programming and partnerships, something that truly seemed impossible 4 years ago. So I want to celebrate that success, and I want to share that with you. I'm also pleased to hear about the progress on safe sharps disposal. Several years ago, I made a deputation about how we were being asked to come and collect sharps that like to clean up units and collect sharps that were in cardboard boxes, which obviously wasn't okay. So I'm glad that this has moved forward because safe sharps disposal is not only a health and safety measure, but it also sends a message to tenants who use injection drugs, whether prescribed or not, that they are welcome parts of their communities. I do want to emphasize that foundational training in harm reduction is a key component to successful implementation of the harm reduction policy. So I want to share with you that TCHC staff approached us, the North End Harm Reduction Network, to ask us to provide harm reduction support to tenants in a building with high levels of drug use and overdose. We had several meetings, came up with a game plan, and then in the final meeting, where we were joined by building staff to finalize the details, we were accused of enabling drug use and making the building less safe. When in fact, these attitudes create unsafe spaces for tenants who use drugs and pose a significant barrier to the successful implementation of this important policy. So I want to encourage you to consider what next steps will be if TCHC staff members either choose not to take the foundational training, or if they do, but their attitudes and behaviors do not change. I also noticed that this update does not include anything on the drug use and eviction or the protection from harassment and discrimination components of the harm reduction policy. I want to reaffirm that these are absolutely key elements of this policy, as you cannot ask tenants who use drugs to access harm reduction programming on site if they do not feel safe from eviction, discrimination, and harassment. All of the pieces of the harm reduction policy are interconnected and need to be advanced in concert to meet the policy's ultimate goal of implementing harm reduction across the board at TCHC and in its communities. Thank you.
Thank you for your deputation. Any questions from committee members? No? Okay.
Yeah, I just have one that there was some feedback that tenants weren't happy with drug use or approved drug use in their buildings. Sorry, I can't see you. I hate this when we can't see deputants. Can't believe we still can't see deputants.
Sorry, no, it was actually building staff.
Oh, the building staff. You didn't hear from tenants, but you heard from building staff.
That's correct. That's correct.
Okay.
Which is why I wanted to.
I'll ask some questions about that because I'll ask what tenants are thinking and the difficulties. This is a really difficult issue, I think so.
Okay, Katie, thank you very much for your deputation. The next deputant is Alejandro. Alejandro, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. So
Hi,
I'm just hello?
Good morning.
Yes, okay, so I'm gonna go with my deputation right now.
Yes, thank you. You have.
And my name is Alejandro, and I am a resident of Toronto Community Housing Community at 200 Wellesley Street East. And I'm making a deputation to advocate for a harm reduction policy, hoping that this gets priority. And that's because in the last year, since the beginning of the pandemic, we have seen a rise in cases of overdoses and deaths related to a contaminated drug supply in the city, especially in the East downtown area. In my community, here at 200 Wellesley Street, many residents are struggling with substance dependency, and it has become very common to hear that people in the building are struggling with contaminated drugs. Last week, an individual here in my building died of such cause, and although this still needs to be officially confirmed, we in our community knows that this is happening too frequently and too often in this building. We have had issues related to substance dependency in this community for years. No one can deny that this has been a big challenge for residents who live in 200 Wellesley. But at this point, I feel that I'm obligated to speak and demand an evidence-based approach to what is an emergency as well as a public health issue and not a criminal one. This last point that I'm making is because I have seen how policing people who do drugs has an effect on an individual who, instead of reaching out for services to overcome and manage substance use, is fearful and overwhelmed with the stigma of being charged. It is my understanding that the city is working with communities to develop a model for decriminalization, but until this happens, our community will continue to struggle with something which can be prevented. It is also my understanding that community safety unit officers does not have training to address this problem, and does not seem to be clear guidelines on how these officers should be addressed these issues through a harm reduction framework. But I do not expect community safety units to deal with this because they are trained in policing and they are not trained on mental health, or they are not social workers. And many, including myself, would not call them for assistance in case of an overdose, as it can lead to surveillance instead of getting the support and residents they need. Harm reduction works, and there is evidence that this is the case because of community advocacy and as well as mental health and addiction services providers' expertise. I hope that with this deputation, we prioritize community health and save lives. Thank you, all of you, for listening.
Thank you, Alejandro, for your deputation. Any questions of the deputant? Okay, seeing none. The next deputant on the topic is Miguel. Miguel, are you back with us?
Hi there. Yes, I'm here.
Hello, Miguel. Welcome again.
Thank you. Hello.
Hello. Hello, Miguel. Go ahead. You have 5 minutes, please.
Yeah. I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak on this item because it's important to bring to the attention of this Tenant Services Committee. In 2011, many years ago, TSC funded a peer support project with intention to implement the mental health strategy. Former CEO Derek Valentine implemented a social innovation fund to fund programs that community organizations could apply for funding and run programs, diverse programs at TSC properties. So many projects were not successful, and that's the reason why the seed funding was cut out. We all have always had drug problems going back to the 70s. TSC decided to partner with the Gerson Center and the Marshman Center, which are two reputable mental health institutions, to help us implement the mental health initiative. But being unfunded, it failed. As you know, we are the housing agency of last resort, and we welcome people from all walks of life, many of them with addictions and mental health issues, and they don't come with support services. And that's our situation. I am attaching a report to this deputation, and I will send it over to Sonia to distribute. Sorry for the delay. From the 2111 report on the mental health strategy from 2011. Did you know that we have spent $320,000 to train and equip TSC residents, 10 TSC residents for a 12-month program? At the end, only 2 people got permanent jobs. I got fired because we were dumped in TSC communities without proper support. I was dumped at Pelham Gardens in the word of Ana Bailao, there was no support from mental health partners or anybody at all. So the program failed to be delivered at Pelham Gardens, another place where high levels of addictions are on the list. We could have had by now a robust harm reduction program if TCSC could use us training individuals with living experiences to help others. At 220 Oak Street, mental health and addictions numbers have gone up, led personally by suicides and overdoses. In September 2020, I was almost a casualty of war. I also lost my life in 2020. I think thanks for the work of COTA and community services that we have now, I was able to overcome my difficulties in life. Now I've been given a second chance in life, but we need help, friends. We are overrun. We really need help, and I see that the value support that peer supporters can provide to residents of 220 Oak Street and also around the community of Moss Park, Jamestown, and Regent Park. I want to recommend that the recommendations on page 4 or 5 of this report to expand the mental health training, to expand the first aid training and the use of naloxone to tenant reps. The answer is the why we have to be trained, because we're in the middle of a storm, and we need to be trained in the issues of how to deal with people in crisis, because believe it or not, we are the punch bag of frustrations of tenants, because we've decided to become the representatives in this building.
30 seconds, Miguel.
And lastly, I want to request my long-standing request for body-worn cameras for CSU officers that I asked the TCSC board since 2020. So perhaps Jack can chat with me or with William Mendez, with the CSU Chief Director William Anderson to implement body-worn cameras for CSU officers, because it is important to keep officers accountable.
Okay, thank you, Miguel.
Very much.
Thank you, Miguel. Thank you for your good timing again. Thank you very much. Any questions of the deputant? Oops. Okay. Seeing none. Sorry. Sorry, my timer went off. Right, sorry. Any questions of staff on this particular item on harm reduction? Questions from committee members? Councillor Fletcher?
Yes, it was indicated that the building staff were having issues with this. And I also just wanted to check in around tenants. This is a really, I'll say, fine line, gray area, difficult, because we have issues with drug sales in many places, fueling a lot of difficult behavior. And then we have a program for harm reduction and taking the drugs. So that's a hard circle to square. And I just don't know what the thinking is at a leadership level as to how to do those two things.
Is that a question for JAG?
JAG, Sheila, yeah, it's two things going on. Does that give the impression that drug sales are okay or not? And I know they're still criminalized, and there's issues in communities with gun violence and drug running and everything else. So how do those two things fit together? I think that's probably why the staff are having a problem, and some tenants might be having a problem. But I'd like to hear from staff. I'd like to hear from board members as well on this one. It's a toughie.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Fletcher, and Sheila, certainly, please, if you don't mind joining as well. But this is the first time understanding of our staff having that feedback. I think I'd have to look into it more to understand, I guess, the context and I guess to be able to provide an accurate response. as far as some of the services that are provided, I think they're in response to the need. And so I'm not necessarily able to comment on, I guess, I'm not, I think, Councillor Fletcher, I would have to take this away and understand better in order to provide you a good response. I'm just coming to learn of some of these items.
Shirley, do you have any further comments?
Sure. I mean, I think Councillor Fletcher, you've outlined what the problem is very clearly. There are, as you've heard through the deputations, there are strong opinions on both sides, not responding, not considering the situation isn't the solution. What through this work, through this policy work, what we're trying to put in place is a balance between responding to people in crisis while at the same time ensuring reasonable enjoyment to all tenants that live in our buildings. So, you know, it is a very challenging question, a pivotal question in the consideration of this work. But we are taking steps to address both sides of the question, and we'll continue to inform ourselves and take feedback from tenants, from the community at large, and try and problem.
Right, Marcel, you've got your hand up.
For the last couple of meetings, I've heard like about when there's gun violence, there's a crisis team that goes into the community to provide support.
Yeah.
Does it kind of make sense to have like an actual support team at TC for like the properties and stuff for the tenants? It's kind of like the way the city, they have that MDOT program, multidisciplinary outreach team, and they go in when there's like, you know, like they deal with people that are homeless, but you could kind of like refashion it to have it actual as a support team, like staggered hours, not 9 to 5, but short evenings and nights. I don't know if that would solve anything, because they would have like they would have expertise in harm reduction, crisis intervention, suicide prevention, all these crisis supports, even supports for people who are witness a horrific event. So I don't know if that's something that you have considered, or if that's something you could consider. That's it.
So we do have community service coordinators who are responsive to issues in community. But Marcel, I believe that the answer to that question we're going to explore more fully through the Community Safety and Support Subcommittee to look at how we currently support communities in crisis with those issues and what we could consider look at to improve in those areas.
And I think community input, especially with the tenant reps that are in existence right now, getting their input and like having everybody say as you go forward, right? That way nobody gets left out, and it's done in a open and honest way.
Very good. Thank you, Marcel. Uwe, do you have any comments?
No, Marcel covered it, and I appreciate the management's going back to review more and come back with more concrete answer. I appreciate that. But it's, as Councillor Fletcher said, it's a fine balance, but it's a hard one. On one hand, we want to make sure people are not selling on the property, but on the other hand, we want to make sure people are safe, staff as well as tenants, you know, and we heard the debatant, you had a second chance because of that program that was working. So let's take this back and come back with more in-depth answers. I appreciate that. Thank you. Pretty much, Marcel covered it.
Very good. Okay, thank you both.
Yeah.
All right, so that's, we'll have a motion to receive that report. If there are there any further questions or comments? No? All right, motion to receive that report then. Moved by Marcel, seconded by Debbie, all in favor. And then that completes the agenda, if I'm not mistaken, Dara.
Subject to any new business that other committee members would want to raise, yes, the next step would be a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Okay, seeing nothing new arising then. All right, motion to adjourn, please. Motion from Marcel, all in favor? Great, thank you all very much for your participation today. Very good, thank you.
Good job, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. All right.